I'm really excited about today. I should have filled my coffee cup though. Maybe my son will wake up and come fill my coffee cup for me. I really should have these things nailed down. My daughter.
I can keep the audience busy while you go fill your coffee.
Oh yeah, I might have to do that. I just want to make sure that this is like moving and getting this on a couple spots first, and then part of the way through I'll definitely be going to fill my coffee cup. I see some people. Good morning, everybody. Hello. Sending this to. Yes, awesome. Everyone's coming on. You guys feel free to share, where copy and paste, and then feel free to share this on anyone's timeline or in any groups that you think people will be interested. We have really exciting stuff to talk about today. I'm going to open this up with, I'm just looking for Colin's page, and I don't know, Colin, your page isn't coming up. So hopefully somebody, I wonder why it's not coming up. Probably doesn't want me to share on your page, darn it. Maybe if somebody can grab this and pop it on Colin's page, that would be amazing. Oh, you know what they did? I think I'm finding it. They've changed the whole thing. I got it. Okay, perfect. Whew, my goodness. One of these days, I'm just going to be able, I think we're all going to just be able to use our mind and say where we want it to go. And we're not going to have to like touch all this stuff, and it's just going to be done. I'm excited for that time.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Colin.
Hi.
I'm going to open this up with an exciting story that happened last night to my youngest child and myself. This was very exciting. I had to call a girlfriend of mine. I could hardly contain it. I actually felt a little bit frenzied by it because what we had experienced seemed like there was some type of frenzy or some type of mission that was happening. So we were driving home, and right in front of us up in the sky appeared a massive, it was solid white. It was a solid, bright white sphere that was moving rather quickly. You could see perhaps maybe some starbursts coming out. I had to like take my glasses off and like double check. Normally, you know, you see a plane, or this was not like a plane or anything. We have a lot of planes that come through here and fly overhead. This was a massive sphere of, it was a starship. There's no doubt in my mind. It felt like it. And it looked like it to me. I've seen some before. And it moved straight across from left to right in front of me and started to disappear behind the trees. And my daughter had said to me, this was most curious. She said, the angels in my body said there are bad aliens coming. So we had to have a discussion because, you know, she felt something or was receiving a message, perhaps a memory. It could have very well been a timeline bleed for her as well, of being under some kind of attack from another timeline. So we had a talk about good aliens and bad aliens, and that we would be protected and that we are safe. And she said, well, you're a stronger angel than me. And then, and I smiled, and, you know, we're talking in the car, and she says, do you know what we are? And I said, tell me, what are we? And she said, we are half, mind you, she's 6 years old. We are half angel, half human, and half alien. And then shortly out of that, we got out of the car and we looked up, and I said, oh my gosh, I feel like we're under attack. Not in a bad way. It was just like what we were seeing at the time was like things racing to go somewhere. You could feel them going somewhere. Not that we were being like psionically attacked. So there were, I don't know, probably 15. They looked like little stars. They were really far away, but these bright white lights, and they were all moving quickly, like all just like moving. It wasn't like stationary stars or something like that. I thought for a minute, what in the world? I felt like we were spinning. It was the most bizarre thing. And then they were gone. It was pretty fascinating. And I tried to get it on camera, but it was like so dark and so far away. And then by the time I looked back out, all I could see were a couple little stars left and some airplanes flying by here and there. But it's really fascinating. And so what Colin is going to talk about, it's interesting that I saw this last night with my daughter, and Colin's going to talk about some correlations that we experience through shows that we watch. We've already talked about how the ascension is working with harvesting, and we're going to talk about separating the wheat from the chaff today, and what that looks like, and how it's felt for Colin, specifically having this longing to be home. And I think a lot of us are feeling that lately, really experiencing that. And I think that's something my daughter experienced last night.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that, because sorry, I'm getting echo again. No, it's echo's gone. Echo's gone.
I'm going to mute myself while you're talking.
Okay. It's interesting that you saw it, because in order for higher dimensional beings to come in with their spaceships, they have to downstep their frequency of their light ships. Now, their light ships are not just bits of metal flying in the sky. Their light ships are actually conscious artificial intelligence. So as they go through, they have to change the frequency of whatever magnetic field is driving that ship. They have to change it, downstep it, so that it can be within the light range of human beings, because we have a very limited frequency range of light that we can actually see with our eyes. And that's going to be a process that's going to start happening more and more, where now I'm going to go back a bit. In our history, I talked about in 2014 that we were told that the off-planet fallen ones had been been invited to leave, and many of them had left. There's still some on the planet. We know who they are and we know where they are, but they're not doing too much damage. But they're also necessary, because the humanoid form of fallen angelics are still on the planet. And we were told, I was told then, that humans would have to remove them from the planet. And that we would have to do it ourselves, but we would be assisted by the Guardian Alliance. And so that's one part of what I'm going to be speaking about tonight, what is going to happen. And then the other bit was, I spoke a bit about this last week, that in the harvest, and in the sense, an ascension is like the harvest, the various stages to an ascension process. And, for each ascension period of 25,000 years, there are 4 quarters in that stage, in that ascension. You get the first fruits, which is the first stage. In the second stage, you get the actual ascension. And then the third stage is the sorting the wheat from the chaff. And the fourth stage is the final ascension, where the chaff doesn't get ascended, but only the wheat ascends, if you understand the analogy of us being the wheat. And we've reached the stage now where we've reached stage 2 of the ascension. Now, people say, well, are people going to disappear? Is a tribulation going to happen? We're going to, not the tribulation, are people going to disappear?
It's when people like assume it's like some zombie apocalypse and everyone just like a big flash and people are gone.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Now, this is going to be very difficult for people to understand. And we've talked a bit about it in the past, that we are running two timelines at the moment. The Guardians are running what is called the parallel antimatter timeline. And they are projecting energy into that timeline in order to change the matter form of what is happening in the parallel antimatter timeline. So we've reached the stage that triggers the, and today's the start, and it gets triggered on the 21st of December. That the ascension actually happens on the 21st of December, but in the parallel universe, in the parallel antimatter universe. And I've talked a lot about that before, so I won't explain how that happens. And then we're going to go through sorting the wheat from the chaff in order to have the final ascension. So now on the 21st of December, they trigger in the parallel universe the ascension. So those who are chosen now will already be in an ascended state in the parallel universe. Now, people might ask, so what does that mean for me here in the matter world? Well, what it means is you can take a lot of, if you are awake, aware, and you're doing your energy work on this planet, you will be notified. You will have assurance of your ascension. So there will be, on the 21st of December, many people will begin to feel more confident of what is happening, be more confident of a victory on this planet, and be more aware of something out there that they aren't consciously aware of, but they're unconsciously aware of. So so if your eyes are on the matter world, you will not understand this. But
Exactly.
if you are engaged with your pineal gland and your intuition, you will have that assurance. Okay, so people still looking at matter world and seeing matter as their reality will have no understanding of what I'm talking about. But those who are doing their energy work and living energetic lives will become aware that the victory's already been won. And they will begin to see it as the wheat begins to get separated from the chaff. And this is going to be a process that will happen during 2022, and it'll reach a peak towards the end of 2022. And then 2023, the proverbial hits the fan, in the sense that all the court cases, all the arrests are going to happen. But it's all dependent on the energy that we produce on this planet, because we are the ones who have to produce the energy that changes the holographic experience. So I encourage everyone to keep being faithful to the work that you're involved in, to whatever calling you have, to whatever belief system you have, with the knowingness that, and a firmness of resolve, and a firmness and resilience against what is happening out there in the matter world. It's not the real world. In fact, it's just an illusion.
It is a pretty brutal illusion for some of us. Today is a very powerful day, and I love that you're bringing this into reality, that today is the start of it. And today's a powerful day. It has to do with the aligning and opening of certain gateways and portals, and it starts and pushes. Numbers are very important, not just by the good guys, but also the not good guys. And so it's important to utilize the energies appropriately. So having 1212 be the start, and then 1221, really be the push, like the explosion of the doors actually opening, and that is the winter solstice. And now is the time that we actually take back our rights, our strength, our power, our love, and mold our reality into a better one, being able to roll up the timeline and move it to a frequency that is that of ease versus so much density, and that's what's happening. So you're going to see when Colin's talking about, I'm just going to break this down in like normal people terms. Some of the things that you're seeing is already you're noticing in your life separation from friends and family because of a difference in values, in standards, and people that are unable to control their emotions, and they're allowing their mental capability to take over their emotions, and allowing outside sources, whether that be governments or other people in their lives, to control their emotions. And when this happens, they begin to separate. So we're already seeing friends and family disappear from our lives. Doesn't mean they're not there, because they're still there, but they're actually disappearing because your frequency is changing. And so that's really an idea to look at on the 3D level of the wheat from the chaff. I think that that's a really fair, tangible way to put it. We're also seeing a decline in people really getting stuck in past. You may be noticing, to try to hold your frequency down, you're getting stuck in old patterns, or old patterns are coming up for witness, whether that be addiction, abuse, things that really brought you down heavy before. These are coming up, and you might hear them as voices or your own voice, and this is trying to hold you down. And I just encourage everybody to feel that fire inside of you and stand up against it and say, no, we already went through this. This is already a done deal. I've made my choice and my decision. You are no longer serving me, and you be the master of your ship. It's so important right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in a sense, you're the captain of your own ship. And this is saying, as above, so below. When people take back control of themselves, it helps humanity take back control of our spaceship called planet Earth. Okay, it's a whole, and it has to do with fractal reality. We are fractions of the Earth, and the Earth is a fraction of the Sun, and the Sun is a fraction of the galaxy. Um, and the minutest, every cell in your body has DNA, and the DNA is a fraction of the universe. It contains all the information. All the information there is in the universe is contained within us, in our DNA. It's just we have lost the ability to connect to that. And we're going back to that. We're going to go to a stage, and it's going to happen very fast. It's going to happen so fast, it's going to make many people's heads spin. But don't be afraid of having that experience, but just understand the experience you're having, and just be willing to go through that experience.
Fearless, standing in fearlessness. It's
Yeah.
so powerful. It's so very powerful. Just let it wash away.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people not to entertain ideas of violence or, you know, the protesting in any violent way. And I think protesting is necessary. We have to resist. Because if you don't resist the nonsense we've been told, but you can resist it in passive ways, you know, by non-compliance, non-agreement, by continuously saying, I do not consent, I do not consent, I do not consent. And the whole of the reality in everybody's life and in everything in the universe is done by contract. And a contract is an agreement. And if you disagree and you continue to disagree, you no longer enter into the contracts that you were entered into when you were born. Because when you were born, you were entered into a contract between the Catholic Church, the head of the Queen of England, your own government, and the whole of the control system here, the matrix. But that was by contract. And your parents didn't understand that they were entering you into this contract, and you went along with the contract through compliance to the laws. Now, when you stop being compliant and you say, I do not agree, and you take a closer examination of what the law is and what it's telling you, you can say, I do not agree, but you can do it in a passive way. You know, Mahatma Gandhi did that in India, and it worked very, very well. In that the British eventually were so frustrated they got out of India, and that's how India won its independence. It was just by passive resistance, by not agreeing with the British. In a sense, that's what we have to do here, is to not agree, to subvert as much as we can their efforts where we can. And, you know, as Maxine Water once gave us excellent advice, if you see them sitting in the restaurant, you go and tell them, you know, and you get a crowd and you look them in the face and you tell them that you're against them. Well, we need to see more of that. And all these people, Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates, they happily get away with murder on this planet, and we support them. Now it's time to say, no. If I see those people, I get a crowd, and we go and tell these people they are not welcome.
I love that. We've been seeing that a lot more here and there with establishments that are feeling really brave to say no to the passports, to say no to masks, and they'll have people coming. I'm just going to call them Nazis. The Nazis coming up, you know, and saying, show us your papers, put your mask on, you're going to be fined. And the whole, you know, everybody in the establishment will stand up and say, get out. You're not welcome here. And, you know, people are finding their ways. They're finding their strength and understanding that this is absolute horse shit is what it is. And, you know, it's warm, smelly horse shit. And it's quite honestly starting to really, you know, it's like, you know, people aren't staying quiet about it anymore. And they're walking around and standing strong, like stand strong. And, you know, the first time you take off your mask, or the first time you say, I don't have papers, or I don't need papers, you know, find one statement that feels good to you, and use it and stand with it, you know, like no thank you, and just keep moving. No thank you, and just keep going, you know, just, you know, find something that you can say over and over again, because that's going to start building that foundation of strength. Because there are so many people that want to do this. There are so many people that know that this is wrong, and they're ready to break these contracts, these agreements that we've had to take on. They just don't know how to. And you do it by taking that first step of saying, no, thank you. I do not consent. I don't consent to this. And they have no choice. They have no choice than to leave you alone, because it's how universal law works. The second you follow their rules is the moment you consent, every time. So, and I understand some people, we talked about this way at the beginning. Some people don't want to lose their jobs and can't lose their jobs, but putting so starting small, like when you put your mask on your face, you say out loud, but to yourself, I do not consent to this. And eventually it's going to start to build that foundation. It's going to build that strength inside of you, to where things just start to shift and change. Reality changes, and those rules don't apply to you. And it's not because you're cocky, and it's not because, you're some crazy rebel. It's because you're a freaking human being with sovereign rights, because you're healthy.
Yeah, and one doesn't have to go overboard on this sort of thing, but there are ways you can actually make life very uncomfortable for those that are controlling us on this planet. If we just identify them, we name them, identify them, find out where they live, find out what they do, how they get their water, how they get their electricity, how their telephones work, what their cell phone numbers are. And with that information, you can make their lives a misery.
Just as they've made ours a misery, just as they've done that. Yes, absolutely. And that's not, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's harassment. Well, doesn't it go both ways then? You can't, looking at this just because, this is just really starting to, their plan is waffling, it's wavering, obviously, because they're grasping at straws. And I know that I've said this before, but they're literally like toddlers having a tantrum right now. And it's one of the things that I used to have a daycare, and when I did the teaching children how to protect themselves if they were grabbed in a store or in a park or whatever. And it was, you drop to the feet. You drop to the person's feet, the attacker's feet. You wiggle and scream and squirm. You drop to their feet and you hold on to their ankles. Like, have you ever tried to pick up a screaming toddler? Good luck. You're never going to do it. Like, you're going to, so the attacker is going to want to run, right? They're going to want to get out of there because this kid is too much. And I feel like that's what they're doing. They're dropping down and like anchoring on our feet and screaming like little toddlers.
Yeah. And it's really just a question of knowing the art of war. You get your enemy to do what you want them to do rather than what they want you to do. So, they want us to mask up and get vaccinated and, not be able to go to fly on planes, not be able to travel, not be able to go friends and family, not be able to associate, not to have sports events where spectators are allowed, not to have, and they got all these restrictions on us. So why don't we put those restrictions on them? I mean, they are the government, but what is the government? The government is mind, govern the mind. That's what government is all about. It's being able to control its people. And if we agree to this mass hypnosis that is going on in this planet, and we agree to be controlled and mind controlled by them, then we've done that by ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. And in order to prove that we're not doing it to ourselves, we need to do it to them. It's as simple as that. You break a contract and you enter into a new contract where you no longer recognize your government as being the controller of your mind, but you say, I am going to put you into lockdown. In fact, we're going to lock you up
Yes.
because that's what needs to happen.
That is what needs to happen. I completely agree. I'm seeing some amazing warriors. John is saying, John Lyron, hello, John. People need to stop complying to their agenda. Let's play our game of taking our powers back and taking their powers away. He was also saying lately he feels like he's orphaned. When we were talking about how the wheat from the chaff, it's sometimes we do feel alone, but we never are alone. And Dan is saying we are one, and we determine how we're going to live. The game is over, and together we are going to create the life that is ours to live in love and in light. I just it's really been a journey to watch. I know this is like my passion, is to watch our men wake up and come alive. This has been so very powerful to see, and be able to break free of the chains that have men not being able to feel compassionate, being told not to cry, being told how to be. And they've been wrapped in a masculinity that is actually a dark mother template. And it's just been so distorted. And there are so many of us, men included, embodying the Christos Sophia, and this is really rising up. And it's just it's like, I feel like for every woman there is a man that stands behind them, and they work together. And I don't know how or why I see it this way. I mean, I know that we have like our monad and our soul and these pieces, and we're both male and female, but there's just something about watching like a man that is embodied, both the male and female, the Haros Gamos. It actually moves me to tears. And it's just beautiful to witness this. It's like, wow.
Yeah. It's like Samson said, out of the strong came forth sweetness. And people didn't understand what he was talking. He saw a lion, and the lion, in the lion, there was a beehive. And so he walked over to the beehive and he ate the honey. And then he gave this parable, out of the strong came forth weakness. And he asked people to understand what that meant. And they couldn't understand. But that's exactly what you're talking about, is when the lion reconciles the sweetness inside of him, then he provides a valuable service to the universe.
Wow, that's beautiful. And especially because when we see the patterning that we've been seeing on planet, it really has a lot to do with the structures of the hexagon and, or the beehive, which is really quite fascinating. And then to take it even a step further, I've been called to ingest honey. And I know that, having your own local honey helps keep your immune system strong. In your region, in your area, having your own local honey. But I love that. And lions, as you know, are coming up for everyone. And I really think, like, how do you put that into perspective with the cat people, the Lyran beings? Not all of them are cats, but do you feel like they're coming around more often, or people are stepping into that realization of who and what they are and having time here?
Yeah, look, the feline races of planet are very dynamic beings, and they've been involved in on Earth for a long time. Many of the feline races inhabit the Arcturian and Orion, constellations, and they contributed their DNA to this planet to produce all the feline species that we have here, and they're very concerned about those that contribution they made was a contribution, as far as they were concerned, of their consciousness. When you contribute your DNA to another species, you are basically taking a part of your consciousness and putting that into another time-space continuum to continue your race line, because your genetics determines your race. And so they are very concerned about the races here on this planet, the feline races, and so are the insectoids, and so are the avians from other time-space continuums. And people have no idea that we live in a vast, vast universe, and in our galaxy alone, there are all these beings who contributed their consciousness to creating a species that holds their consciousness as a race line. And so they're not going to forget that, because in their own soul evolutionary journey, if they want to enter into the God worlds, they have to reconcile and recover all those bits of their own consciousness. So there's this continuous going back and forth of those higher dimensional beings who will come back here and see what happened to their DNA and examine it and try to assist those bits of their consciousness in order to have their own ascended path and soul evolutionary path. And that's been a problem for them here on this planet for many, for eons, many thousands of years, 2,340, 234,000 years.
But who's counting?
Yeah. And that was when the third seeding happened on our planet, when all these beings contributed their DNA to the consciousness of the beings of the planet, including human beings. And we come from many, many different star systems and star races. And the problem is our history's been distorted. We don't know our history. It's been hidden from us. In fact, in the last 3 months, I've been doing a lot of research in history, and it's created many puzzles in my mind, because the known history on this planet is so inaccurate.
It's incredibly inaccurate. And I know we've brought this up before, but it's still going to be most curious to me how the information comes out. And I guess I'm kind of seeing, in our talks, as we chat and we talk out loud, and then more information keeps coming. I feel like it's, because we're seeing the timelines realign. We're seeing the proper north-south come into mind, the veils drop, and, reality shifting and changing. I'm kind of starting to think that there's not even going to need to be like lessons that you take. It's just that DNA strand is in that time. It's just going to come online, and the history is right there because you already have it. And so when that mass awakening happens and people remember who and what they are, there's definitely no stopping that. There's no books to burn or ban. There's nothing you can shut off because it's there.
Yeah. And from about the year 2024, we're going to go through the phase of remembering our history, and it's coming back to this planet, and I've been reading some very interesting historians who don't agree with history, the known history, and they're beginning to rewrite the history because it was false. And I mentioned it in one of my posts lately, that about the exodus from Egypt. The exodus from Egypt wasn't the children of Israel. It was, in fact, a tribe called the Hyksos. And the Hyksos were traders in Egypt. and they came from many parts of the Mediterranean, including Turkey, Greece, Italy, and France.
Yes,
And
yes.
and what happened? There was a one of the Greek islands had a volcanic eruption, and was the island of Santorini, and that happened at about 1300 BC. And what it did, it turned the water of the Mediterranean to red because of the iron oxide in the water. So when Moses was supposed to have brought the first plague and the water was turned to blood in the Nile, it was the water coming from the Mediterranean into Egypt and turning the water into blood. And then all the other plagues that happened, you know, were as a result of this earthquake. And it makes more sense that, like the 3 days of darkness that came along, what was that from? That was the dust cloud that was created by this volcano that blotted out the sun for 3 days. The locusts, the swarm of locusts, the eruption on this planet opened up fissures in the Earth's cracks that released many locust larvae, and the locusts, there was a plague of locusts. And the one that puzzled me was the death of the firstborn. But then I researched that and I found that in Egypt, ancient Egypt, the first son of was reckoned to be the heir to the fortunes of the family, and he would sleep downstairs, and the rest of the family would sleep on the first floor. Now, this happened in Cameroon, where there was an eruption in a lake in Cameroon, and a cloud descended from the water. But because of the density of the cloud, it couldn't water. Air is more dense in that cloud, and but it was less dense in the sea. So it traveled along the river down into the villages below, and it poisoned all the people. And that's exactly what happened with this volcanic eruption. It created this poisonous gas that traveled along low-lying areas, and of course the so-called Israelites, or the Hyksos, were saved from this because their firstborn didn't sleep on the ground floor. They slept up in the top floor with the rest of the family. It was only the Egyptian sons that slept on the ground floor. So that's how the firstborn of the Egyptians was killed. So
That's really that's so fascinating. I've not done any study on this, but I see this in people's fields sometimes. Like it'll say that I need to clear a timeline of the I never could pronounce it. When I would see it, they would show me it sounded like Hyksos or Hyksos. And I'm like, what in the hell is that? Like, because it'll just be like, you need to clear this timeline. And so it's just so fascinating that there is actually, information that you can go and look, and it always falls in line with what our inner knowing shows us. So I think that's fantastic.
So the Hyksos weren't trying to escape from the Egyptians. They were trying to escape from the damage of the eruption on Santorini. And so they traveled south, and they got to an area called the Reed River. And that's when the supposed waters parted. But what happened? Because the Reed River apparently it no longer exists. It's just empty bed. But apparently, what happened was it was shallow enough for the Hyksos to go through. But when the Egyptians tried to cross the river, there was a flood that happened, and it killed all the Egyptians. So the water wasn't parted; it was just very shallow, and the Hyksos walk through it. But when the Egyptians followed behind them, and they weren't trying to kill the Hyksos, they were trying to get away as well. But they weren't quick enough, and so they all got killed or drowned in this flood that happened. And there's so many anomalies in history that it's astounding to me that historians are so damn blind that they don't actually see what's in front of them. They only see what they think the controllers want them to say. So they don't look further. They don't really research. I mean, there are many anomalies. Like there's about 1,000-year anomaly in our timeline here. There seems to be 1,000 years that just disappeared. The Tartaria was an area in the Balkans that was a very advanced civilization. There was a massive flood, and the Tartarians were destroyed. But it's never mentioned in our history it's not Tartarians. And so the Tartarians are never mentioned in our history because they just got flooded out. It was a mud flood.
There's some really interesting things. I'm going to ask you this question since you're bringing up Tartaria or the Tartarians. Doing grid work and timeline work, I've seen some discrepancies, and this is a war over timelines, and a spiritual battle, a war over timelines, and so there's been some really interesting, fascinating things that myself and my teams have witnessed from the Tartarian timelines, and kind of like timelines being zipped, like a zip file. They've been zipped closed. But Ian is mentioning he was just having a Earth history conversation with a friend this morning, and I'm curious because there are people that have memories, and there are distortions within these memories. So when our memories come online and we start to suss this out, we all have the same memories, but from different perspectives. And so how does one reconcile the discrepancies in the memories of history? Because it's a real thing. Somebody's going to say this is really how it truly happened, and then somebody else is going to say no, this is really how it truly happened. And because there is no writing, and this is coming from an internal knowing or a cellular gnosis, how does one say what is right and what is wrong? Do you think that we can find real clues on in 3D to determine this?
Yeah. It's like when I was doing my research on history. I don't just research the history of a country. I research a period in time. Sometimes I do research the history of a country because that's interesting. But like 1300 BC, if you research history, that period of time, there was this equator earth eruption, in Santorini. So then how did that affect other countries? So I go look at what was happening in Asian Minor at the time, what was happening in Israel at the time, what was happening in Italy at the time, and other countries along the North African coast like Morocco. Is there any record of what was happening in 1300? And so it's up to us to reconcile all those bits of history and then put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Because frankly, if you believe the history that we've been told, it's partly true, but there's a lot of nonsense. So it's like all the information here, our science information, it's partly true, but not true.
Yes.
For instance, all my life, I believed that electricity was about pushing electrons through a wire and reaching the other side and creating a current in the wire. But that is in fact not true, because if that was true, how long does it take a current to move along that electricity? There would be a delay between the time you put the switch on and the light comes on, because this current would have to travel. But it comes on instantaneously. Why is that? Because there's no electron traveling around, because in fact electrons just vibrate in the wire, and that sets up a electromagnetic field around the wire, and that travels instantly to the light bulb, and your light bulb gets switched on by an electromagnetic field. It's not electricity.
Which is why people can turn lights on and off with just their own electromagnetic bodies without flipping a switch.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I feel like it doesn't take a genius or a rocket scientist. It just takes a little bit of common sense. And unfortunately, our common sense has been, quite honestly, I think, stolen from us or kept from us. It's part of the DNA unplugging. So it's more challenging to reach those conclusions. Stephanie is saying academia is one of the arms of the family. They have harbored the truth from us through this way as well. So, it's.
And that control is still happening. Why introduce some of the subjects that they do introduce into academia?
Yeah.
Why do they try to prevent people from worshiping God in schools? They say they're trying to separate schools from religion. So it's all about separating, compartmentalizing bits of information into small compartments instead of understanding the whole. So if you understand God, what's that got to do with education? God is knowledge. Where does knowledge come from? God. What is education? It's knowledge. So how can you have knowledge without the knowledge of God? And no one reasons that way anymore. And that's common sense.
and God is turned into a man-made religion, which is what it is not. And so, I know getting for myself, removing religious programming and religious dogma was a really big deal. It was a real challenge for me. I couldn't use the word God. It was like I didn't know how to use it because I was locked. I grew up Catholic, so I was, locked down in, the rigidity of the Catholic religion, and just, and not just that, you go back in your own timelines and you've been stuck in other religions too, and all of them man-made, man-constructed, just like the education system, just like the pharmaceutical system, just like the government system, all man-made, all to keep us separate. They always claim they're keeping, church and state separate, and here they are, like, worshiping their own deities and demons, and running the planet off of keeping us in fear, and eating our babies. So there's that.
And in this next period of time, and I'm really excited about it, but I think we're going to have our work cut out for us, just in helping people to understand, because they're going to get the surge of memory back, like I did. I was called to go and study history, and so I've been looking at history. I understand ancient history, but the history that's recorded on planet Earth, I wanted to know if that was true and reliable, and if I could tell my students about it. And the more I researched it, the more I realized how many lies there were in it and how inaccurate it was. So I thought, I can't give my students this nonsense. So I've got to research it myself. I've got to become the historian that tells the truth, and I find it's such a major task that I've almost kind of given up, because to record the history of this planet from 4,000 years before Christ to now is, it's just almost impossible. But you can get clues, like through archaeology, you can find out what is the earth telling us, what is the evidence that is in the ground, what is the evidence that's in the sky, what is the evidence in the mountains, what is the evidence underground, what is that all about? And I hope to get people excited about discovering true history and not, gobbling up the absolute nonsense that we are being told. So, yeah, if
I
I can
think
get people excited about it, that's enough for me because it's
I
too
know.
much for me.
Well, and I think people are getting excited, and people are asking questions. And I was having a conversation with my mother, um, who is really finally understanding uh, religion, and really understanding the process of how uh, the mother has really been kept from us, really understanding both parts of mother God, father God. And she was a I'm not going to like blow her story, because someday I hope to have her. I hope to have her on if we ever get to that point. But she's having memories. She's starting to have a lot of memories, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Chastity, what you're saying is like starting to make sense." Whereas before she thought I was just crazy and possessed, and now she's getting woken up, and and now she's asking me questions, and like even about like Antarctica. I sent her something about how, we're in a reversal, and, the South Pole is really the North Pole kind of thing. And I didn't say this. I just, kind of put it in her little message box. And she's like, I watched that. And I don't know why, but I am having these memories. Like her body is remembering that there's information that is true. And so it's really fun to watch and experience. And this is the excitement that I'm hoping, is that when people are waking up, that it can cause those schisms in the mind. And so what Colin and I want to do is be able to offer a really safe space to have weird conversations, and be able to say, no, that's true, or yes, let's look at this, because it might be a holographic insert to try to keep you from not knowing the truth. And because it's so easy to put these programs in the body, these, we just want to just lovingly take them out. Take those programs out of your hologram in each little sphere of reality, and we're just going to plug along.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We live in amazing times, and it's going to get really interesting. And I encourage people, if you're feeling unsure, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling uncertain, if you just want more clarity in something in your life, you can call me. You can message me on Facebook. I'm always there. Well, I'm not always on Facebook, but I check up on Facebook once a day, or twice a day actually, morning and evening. And just say, hey, I've got a question, because I love questions. Because the pathway to knowledge is through questions. Curiosity is an amazing thing. And if you're not curious about the world and the universe you live in, you'll never discover what it is. You have to ask questions and be questioning in order to discover knowledge.
Yes, I agree. Alan's asking a question. He's saying, can't you just remote view history?
Can I remote view?
Yeah, can't you just go in and remote view history instead of like, reading history books? He's basically like, can't you just go into the timelines, or can't you just go into, I don't know, let's say the Halls of Amenti, and say, okay, show me history in the 1300s, and remote view it.
Yeah, it's not as simple as that. You can remote view it, but you have to get into the right frequency
Mhm.
or consciousness, frequency of consciousness, in order to enter into the timeline. Because history is just information recorded on 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 a wave of light.
Yeah.
Okay, so in a sense, our future, and time is not linear. So we don't have a future. We have 1,728 possible futures. So if you on and 1,728 possible timelines, so you have to get into the mindset of exploring time and space, which is, remote viewers don't necessarily do that. But, I could do that, but it's very, very complex. And sometimes you get information that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of, you can interrogate that information, try to make sense of it. And I do that a lot because in the past, I've often got information that didn't make any sense to me, so I had to go research it.
Yeah.
So it's not like switching on a light bulb and poof, the history is revealed.
Yep.
You have to explore it with your imagination and your mind, and and with integrity. That's an important thing. If you're not integritous about your exploration, then you will not find the truth, because then you are willing to compromise information and compromise knowledge, and that doesn't lead to truth.
Exactly. I love how you say that. For when you're talking about the frequency part, it's interesting because I feel like you have to go into that vibration in order, which is challenging to do, and you have to be so neutral. You can't come in with your own ideas and understandings and comprehensions of things. Like, you have to literally be as of nothing and assume the frequency and vibrations. And sometimes when you say they don't come in and make sense, there are words and sounds that don't make sense. And sometimes you don't even see pictures, you only get colors and other vibrations. And then it it comes into your cellular structure in order to create and what it's actually saying. And when you bring your own thoughts in, which is, no matter what, you're going to have an interpretation and a layer of ego to come through to bring the information in. So it's already going to start stepping down immediately. There's no way around that, unless we're all walking around as balls of light, which we're not doing right here in this reality. So
Yeah.
it's very important to be in integrity and close to nothingness and allness at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the future, in our near future, the next year, it's going to be very important that people keep an open mind. Um, and all the things we've been talking about tonight, to stay in integrity, stay in authentic, um, resisting the controllers here, supporting any efforts to bring them to justice, applauding the efforts to bring them to justice. Because when you support something, you add in your energy towards it, you know, and it's all about energy. And if we learn how to, when we support something, it's like, um, you know, uh, adding value and creating a bigger wave of energy, you know, when we support it. But when we resist something, that wave that's coming from the fallen ones runs out of momentum and it begins to collapse. And so that's why resistance is very important from an energetic perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, look at that. Our time is up for the day. I've been out of coffee for a while now, but I didn't want to get up because the conversation was too good. Um,
Well,
so
go make a cup of coffee and enjoy it. And actually, I feel this show has been very good in the sense that I feel the energy levels of the show has upped, from the past. And I think it's going to get better and better and better, you know.
Mhm.
it's not necessarily from a knowledge, but the integrity of the knowledge is going to connect with people. So that is going to build that field of energy that we need in order to create the momentum.
I agree. We're all stepping into different roles. We've accepted these responsibilities already. So we know what we're up for and in for. And I think that definitely all of you here have probably noticed a shift in the container as well when you step in with us on Sundays. So I've been on a creating, creating. So I think for you, Colin, we're going to have to create a Coffee with Colin mug and t-shirt, a Coffee with Colin mug and t-shirt set. And so I think that'll be the next thing. We can all rock our t-shirts with let's see, Lyndon, I think, said that you look like Father Christmas. So what an amazing with your beard today and your flannel.
Yeah, I'm trying to create a mane so I look like a lion.
I love it. It's perfect. Oh my gosh. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I think also moving in the future, we're just going to see some changes and a continuing upgrade of information and support and love that we have for each other and for each of you. So thank you so much for being here every week, you guys. This is really, truly amazing.
Yeah. Beloveds, you are much loved and respected. So, keep on, don't give up. We're going to win this. When we go one, we go all.
Absolutely. And on that, I love you guys. Go check out the writings of colinjoe.com. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.